Hey guys, coming in with another movie review for you guys, and this movie I'm reviewing, I honestly didn't really remember this movie. I remember I watched the trailer for this movie, I reacted to it, I just didn't really remember the trailer. Maybe it just wasn't a very memorable trailer, or it just kind of went under the radar, but I just didn't really remember much about this movie. However, this movie's been getting so much acclaim and so much love. Most people are saying it's one of the best movies of the year, and that has, chance of getting Oscars, and I really want to check out this movie, and finally it came to my theater. After waiting so long, this and two other movies came to my theater, one of which I was definitely all three I was really looking forward to, but this was definitely, out of the three, the one I wanted to see the most, and that, of course, is Spotlight. Yes, I did get a poster. Thank God my theater actually had a poster. I was surprised they had a poster for this movie because, it is a limited release, but they did have a poster for it, which is going to be right next to that, next to the Black Mass poster. I'll put it there. But like I said, guys, I initially was really looking forward to this movie. Interesting that I have two posters for both movies to take place in Boston. If you guys didn't know, this movie takes place in Boston, so the Black Mass. But, anyway, that's beside the point. But, I was definitely looking forward to this movie. I heard amazing things about it. I really didn't remember what it was about, though, except for a few things going into it, and honestly, I recommend you guys do that, because I came out of it thinking Spotlight is a absolute masterpiece. Spotlight is one of the few masterpieces of the year. I absolutely loved every minute of Spotlight. It is by far one of the best movies of the year. There's so much to love about this movie, and I will give you my thoughts, how much I loved it, things like that. But I do want to tell you guys, if you guys have a theater that plays this movie, go see it right now. Honestly, go see it. I don't care what you have to do. Just see this movie before the year's over, because you're going to be hearing about it. You're going to regret that you didn't see it, because you're going to hear things about come Oscar time. I know you're going to, and you're going to wish that you would have seen it. Let's get to the plot of Spotlight, which, the plot of this movie, I love the plots of this movie, because it's a very simple plot, but it's a lot more than that, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. The plot to Spotlight is pretty simple. There's this newspaper called the Boston Globe, and there's this team there called Spotlight, which they are this four-member team. There's four members in this team, and they're the oldest continuously operating newspaper investigative unit in the United States, which, by the way, that is a real paper. I believe they still operate today, but it's very interesting. They basically are the ones that take as long as they can to get stories. They do whatever they can to get it, get as much information as they can to get the best story possible. And one day they get this new editor, because their previous editor just left them, so they hire a new editor played by Liev Schreiber. And he kind of, looks into this one case that he feels really hasn't been solved yet. This case about this priest, there have been these priests that have been sexually abusing these kids, and it's a case that was closed already, but he really doesn't think has been closed, and convinces them to reopen it and get more information on it, and this ends up being a lot more than they think it is. What starts as a simple case becomes a lot more, and that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to ruin the movie, and that's basically is the plot of Spotlight, and I absolutely love this movie. That's one of the few reasons why. The plot is so simple, but it's not really simple at all. It's so much more than you think, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. Now, definitely something this movie is going for it, and something that I think could have hurt it, was the all-star cast that this movie has. Every single person in this cast is, huge. Every single person in this cast has made a big name for themselves. You guys have heard of them before, and that could have been a big problem. I've seen that a lot this year, where you have potentially really big, really great cast, but they all kind of, just because of them being so big name, they don't really have the stand-up performances that they need, and that is not the case in this movie. This is probably the best ensemble I've seen all year. If I had to pick an ensemble that I thought was the best, it would be the ensemble in this movie, because I think everyone really gives an amazing performance, and I'm going to talk about everyone individually. By far, the standout is Mark Ruffalo as Michael Rosales, who, by the way, guys, all these people were real, but his character specifically was incredible. He really did a great job, and he was really great in the movie. He has this one freakout scene in, the middle of the movie, and it's so good, and you eventually find out why he was having this freakout, and he really did a great job in this movie. He seems to really care about this case, probably more than anyone. You eventually realize why. He really did an amazing job. I really loved his character, and I think he really summed up the movie very well. Michael Keaton in this movie. I mean, he's coming right off of Birdman. Also, Mark Ruffalo's coming off of Foxcatcher. Now, is this as good as his performance in Birdman? No. Birdman is still Michael Keaton's best performance. But his character in this movie, I thought, was really great because, just like Mark Ruffalo, becomes a lot more than we think, as do all the characters in this movie. The movie seems like it's going to go in this really simple direction, and none of the characters end up that way, especially Michael Keaton, who... I don't want to spoil what happens to his character, but it is genuinely shocking, and I'll get into how we get into the screenplay. Rachel McAdams in this movie was also great. I really liked her character. Sasha, she was really great. Liev Schreiber, what I like about his character is that he could have easily been this really cliched character that starts having fights and tries to go against them or some stupid twist with them. But no, he simply just, has some ideas and kind of thinks differently about this case than they do and makes them want to investigate more in this case. And I think he did a very good job. He fit right in there with the team, and he did a very good job with that. John Slattery's really great here. Brian Darcy James, just everyone in this movie was really great. I also really want to give credit to every single member that they speak with. Any person that they speak with in those one-on-one interviews when they have the sexual abuse victims who have survived, some of the best scenes in the movie by far. They all did an amazing job. I'll get more into that in the screenplay, but just, wow, holy shit, they were incredible. The cast overall is just great. One of the best things about the movie, and I really did love it. And the directing here is directed by Tom McCarthy, who... He's written a couple movies. He's written Up. He's written The Cobbler. But Spotlight, I think, is definitely his best. His directing to this movie was really great. He also wrote this movie. But his directing here, I thought, was very solid. I definitely like the way he directed this movie. Because, like I said, it really starts like a simple case. You really think you know the direction this movie's going to go in. And then the rest of the movie happens, and you realize, oh, no, there's a lot more going on here than you think. And I love it when movies do that. When movies beg you to watch, and movies say, no, we're not going to be this typical movie. We're going to be a movie you never forget. That's exactly what this movie wants to do. It doesn't want to be like other investigation films. And that's one of the things I like about this movie. Is a lot of people have been comparing it to like Zodiac and All the President's Men, movies like that. And I don't think this movie really deserves that comparison because I think it really is its own thing. While the movie, I think, is purely an investigation film, it's also a character-driven film. I think that was something that was really great with the directing. The tone was very well executed here. I definitely really loved it. Some of the best directing I've seen all year. And definitely, nomination for him at the Oscars, definitely he did a great job. And also, the entire cast, Mark Ruffalo, I think, is definitely going to be the one to get the nomination. I'm definitely going to say that. But the screenplay here is simply the best screenplay I have heard all year. Yes, Beast of No Nation, I think, is still the best movie of the year. But I think overall, in terms of screenplays, this was by far the best one. For a couple reasons. Like I said, it really goes in this unexpected direction, but also because it genuinely shocked me. This movie did not have one, not two, but three plot twists that all were genuinely shocking. I didn't see any of them coming, and I love that. I loved the writing to this movie. It was so interesting. It kept me invested the whole time. I loved it. There were so many fantastic scenes in this movie. I mean, we're dealing with a team here that really can't relate to the situation going on because maybe they were Catholic at one point, but they really aren't that passionate when it comes to their religion. And that's one of the most interesting things about the movie is the fact that this team really isn't into that. And I think that's something that's really great about the movie is that while the movie could have focused on the case, it focuses more on the team's reaction, how this is affecting them physically, mentally, the information they're getting. I mean, this really starts to affect their life in a really interesting way, and I definitely really like that. And I'm not going to spoil anything about this movie, guys, because I don't think enough of you have seen it for me to spoil it, and I don't like to spoil movies that not enough people have seen, and this is one of them, so I don't really want to spoil it for you guys. But that plot twist, the twist they have in this movie overall is really great. And there's some really great reveals about the characters that I really didn't see coming, and I definitely really like that, and I thought were extremely well done. In this really great way. Some of the best scenes in this movie are just them hearing these abuse victims. I mean, it's really gruesome stuff. These are clearly stories that they've always kind of wanted to tell, but have always kind of been afraid to, probably because the priest told them to, or was at a young age. I mean, they were not teenagers when this happened. They were between the ages of 11 and 13 when this happened. It's insane to think about, but they really did a great job with that. I definitely really like the way they got into their stories. The movie definitely did not hold back. Like, Tom McCarthy was not concerned about holding back. He wanted to tell the most cohesive story possible, just like the investigators in this movie want to get all the information they need, he definitely got all the information he needed to make the most interesting story. And just hearing these stories, they're not things you want to hear, but you're so drawn to them because this stuff actually happened. The fact that this priest actually did these terrible things is disgusting, but they're very interesting to hear about, and each one of them had their own separate story that I really loved, and I thought were all very, very compelling, and was by far one of my favorite things about the movie were their stories. I mean, anytime they come up, I really love them, and honestly, every single one of them deserves some kind of recognition. I don't know what kind of recognition specifically, but they all did a great job, and I really thought all of them were fantastic. They all were great, really, they were. But something else I love in the movie, and a lot of people have said this, and I will agree, is the way they portray church in this movie. They don't portray church as something bad. This movie is not trying to say don't go to church. This movie is not trying to say don't be Catholic. What the movie is saying is that this happens, that there's sexual abuse, and that these priests do these things. That's all it's saying. This is not a movie that's banning churches in any way, and I don't think people should go to this movie thinking it's going to do that, because it very well could have done that. This could have been a very preachy film, and it's not. It is much more character-driven, and is much more fact-based, and I really love that. I think it's very well done, the way they handled that in this movie, because they could have easily gone a very preachy direction, and I'm glad that they didn't. This is honestly probably one of the few movies I've seen that deals with churches that doesn't handle it in this lifetime preachy, God is good or God is bad. It doesn't really do that. It's not an anti-Catholic film, nor is it a Catholic film, and I was very happy with that. It very much was its own thing, and I thought was really great, but it wasn't afraid to peel back the layers of some of these characters. There's even a scene where we find out something about one of the priests that was genuinely shocking, and I thought was very well done, and I really love that, and I thought they handled it very, very well, because again, we're supposed to be against these priests, but it's also showing that they even had a motive. They had reasons for doing this, and it was very interesting to watch. I really loved, I have to say, just really, really interesting stuff there. I also love, like I said, how much this affected the team. I mean, this leads them to reveal things they really probably never wanted to reveal. They are pretty much hiding as much as the victims are, which is very interesting. And when we find out what they're hiding and why they're hiding it and what's going on, especially someone Mark Ruffalo's character was very well handled. And I didn't go into this movie thinking we were going to get a lot of character development. I was thinking this is going to be a movie that was kind of fact-based, and that this just be the team. And for the first half, yeah, they don't really have too much of a character. They do have characters, but you definitely see there's a lot more going on with them than you think there is in the second half, and I really like that. I also liked how this film took place in 2001, which I forgot to say. This movie does take place in the 2000s, and this is a case that's been going on since, like, the 1990s. I mean, it's still been going on since then, and I really do love that. But the fact that it took place in the 2000s gave them room to do some things. They do talk about 9/11 in this movie, and I thought they handled it very well. They didn't, again, make it over preachy. It's an event that occurs. It's something that stalls their story, and I thought they handled that very well. I mean, they could have, again, gone very over the top, and it's probably the most subtle portrayal of 9/11 I've seen, and I loved it, honestly. It's very realistic, and if I were to think about how this would have happened, if I were to think about how they did this story, that's probably the most accurate portrayal I would have thought of, and I wish more films would handle a situation like that the way that this movie does, because it is very well handled, and I was very impressed by the way they handled it. It was very, very good stuff. Really enjoyed that. So yeah, overall, best screenplay of the year. The dialogue was so interesting. I really got into this case, I have to say. I mean, this case is so interesting. I was so invested. The entire movie I found was so great. And again, just like Bridge of Spies, which I just reviewed last night, of course, if you guys haven't seen that movie, this movie is very much like that, in that it is very dialogue-driven. There's no crazy shit going on in this movie. It's all dialogue. All the twists in this movie all happen through dialogue. And I think it's a good example of show not tell, but in the best way. I mean, it's good that they don't show the events in this movie, because I felt there were certain things in this movie that I thought was going to happen, and I'm happy they didn't do, because it just would have made me not be able to take this movie as seriously as they wanted me to. Hearing about these events is a lot worse than actually seeing them, because when you see them, you can, see what they're going through, but you don't really feel their emotion unless you hear about these victims who has basically been scarred for life because of what's happened to them. That I found a lot more compelling than just seeing it, and I think it was good that they chose to not see any of the events that happen in this movie. They don't show you a single sexual encounter. I'm going to say that right now. None of the there's no sexual abuse in this movie. We hear about it in very graphic detail, but there's no sexual abuse in this movie, and I definitely really like that. There's even parts in this movie, though, where you do think they're going to hold back, but no, there's a part where a man does hold back, and they say, no, we need the full story, and again, I like that they were able to do that. I thought that was really great, and just seeing how many people were affected by this is insane. I mean, there are even lawyers that have been affected by this because they have talked to people, and they have been, trying to keep things confidential so nobody finds out about it, and it's insane to think about. But to think about this, if you were ever sexually abused by someone, and you weren't gay, especially if you weren't gay, I mean, just think about that. It's insane, especially because it's from a priest, is insane to think about, and the various reasons why some of these people did that, I thought was really great, because it is a big question of, why would you do this? If you were young and they asked you to, why would you decide to do this? I found some of those reasons very compelling, and I definitely really love that, I have to say. So yeah, I thought that was really great as well. There's also a really big twist in this movie as to why they never closed this case, which I really loved. And honestly, my jaw was on the floor when that happened. Probably one of the most shocking moments I've seen of any movie this year, and I loved it. The ending, especially to this movie, is just so raw and emotional, and it might end at a point where you're like, that's it, but honestly, it ends there because that's all we need to see. We don't need to see anything else, and I love that. The cinematography is really good to this movie. It's not anything that's special. This is not really a movie that is focused on cinematography, though. It's focused on creating a great story, and that's exactly what they did. The cinematography is very good to this movie. It's just nothing that amazing. It's not really the thing at the end of the day that I'll look back on and say, like, oh yeah, the cinematography is great here. Something I really do commend the movie on is the editing. The editing to this movie, I thought, was fantastic. I absolutely loved the editing because it just kept you so invested. There's this one scene where Mark Ruffalo is talking to this one victim, and at the same time, Rachel McAdams' character is talking to another victim, and they're both just as great because they're such different stories, and you love how this is all going on. The dividing of teams, like what one character would do and what the other character would, I thought was very interesting. I definitely really like that. And I also like that none of the characters were necessarily good or bad. There are things the characters do in this movie that might be a little bit pushing boundaries. They might be doing some things that might not be the best thing to do, but that's just what they had to do for their investigation, and it really portrayed them as human, and I really like that. Especially, like I said, the scene with the priest really portrays them as human, and I thought they handled it all very, very well. The score as well, this movie, is so dark, it's very dreary, you get this really eerie tone from it, and I thought they handled the score very, very well. I really enjoyed it, and anytime it came on, I thought they utilized it very, very well. Definitely really loved the score to this movie. Really great stuff, and overall, guys, Spotlight is simply one of the best films I have seen all year. It is such a great movie. I can't recommend it enough to you guys. I'd love to tell you guys some of the things that happen in this movie. I really would love to reveal some of them. Honestly, I'm going to, okay? I'm gonna spoil some stuff because I can't talk about this movie and not spoil, some of the things that I loved in this movie. So if you guys have not seen Spotlight, I do want to talk spoilers. I wasn't going to, but I feel like this review is incomplete without it. I'm sorry, guys. I know that you guys don't like me talking about spoilers for movies I shouldn't have to, but this movie's a movie I feel is really incomplete with, it's a review that I feel is incomplete without talking about spoilers, so I really do want to talk about it. If you guys have not seen Spotlight, go to your local theater, see it now. I can't recommend it enough. It's one of the best movies of the year. It is truly a masterpiece, and let me just talk about it. Okay. Like I said, there were 3 twists that genuinely shocked me. The first one I want to talk about is the revelation with Mark Ruffalo's character, when we find out that the reason Mark Ruffalo, he has that huge speech talking about how this could have been any of us, and that, we should be a lot more worried, and that we're not acting like we are worried. The scene when we found out that he was Catholic, and that he kind of just dropped it, is really interesting, because he's kind of thinking, this could have been me. If I would not have dropped Catholicism when I did this, is probably something that he's kind of thought about all his life, that he dropped being Catholic, and that he doesn't really go to church a lot. He's always been Catholic, but he just doesn't go to church a lot, and I can honestly say the same thing for that. I don't go to church a lot, but I am Catholic, and it's interesting, but I think his response to that is very interesting. Just seeing that revelation, him thinking, you know what, this probably was a good decision that I made because I didn't end up like one of them. And he kind of feels bad about it because I think a part of him feels like he could have been one of them. And I really love that scene between him and Rachel McAdams. Really powerful stuff there. And then the reveal that the priest, the reason he might have raped one of these kids because he was raped. I mean, what the hell? Most likely raped by his sister. When his sister came out, I'm like, he's probably raped by his sister. I like that they don't really go into it more because that's all we needed to know. Just seeing that this priest is human too. Everyone has a reason for doing things. I thought was really great and I love that. And then, of course, the final twist with Michael Keaton. My jaw dropped, like I said here, and I loved it. The twist that Robbie was, the reason that he closed the case is because he did know 20 of the priests, 20 of them, and basically tried to keep things as, closed as possible because he didn't want to get them in trouble is fantastic. I loved it. But now he's kind of coming to the realization that, yes, they did do something wrong. He has to acknowledge that. The scene where he goes to that one priest and the priest doesn't want to admit the certain things he did is really powerful stuff. I really loved it and really was genuinely shocking. So overall, guys, Spotlight is simply one of the best films of the year. I can't recommend it enough. It is an absolute masterpiece, and I am definitely going to give Spotlight a 5 out of 5 or an A+. It is the second best movie of the year. Not the best, the second best, but it will definitely be on my top 10 list. I absolutely loved it. It is such a great movie. Like I said, I can't recommend it enough. It's one of the best ensembles. It will get a lot of Oscar nods. I know it's going to, and I can't recommend it enough. But that's basically my review Spotlight. Hope you guys enjoyed them. Let me know if you guys thought this movie, you have seen it. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for Jessica Jones. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.